Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. So today we've got another review. We're going to be reviewing this 2017 Volkswagen Passat SE. Alright, so just looking at this car, I'm definitely very impressed, especially considering that, normally I don't really like Volkswagens that much just as an overall manufacturer. But before we actually get into, the very specifics that, make this car what it is, I did just briefly want to mention the dimensions of it. So this Passat actually has a length of 192 inches even, a width of 72 inches, and a height of 59 inches from factory. Now moving on, I did just want to briefly mention that this car does have a completely four-wheel independent suspension with nothing really special, just traditional like McPherson style struts all around. And also I did just want to point out that these are actually the 17-inch wheels that come with this car. Now again, they're nothing super special, but overall I do like the styling. It does look very sleek and pretty modern, honestly. Like as you can see here, like all this trim, this isn't, I'm sure it's fake chrome, but it's not like super noticeably fake chrome. A lot of times with cars, like you'll have kind of like this plastic chrome that like goes around everything and it starts to peel off and stuff like that, whereas this actually feels like metal. And again, it is a 2017, so it is pretty new, so you don't know how long that's going to hold up, but it is just something that cool that I did actually kind of want to point out, because honestly, like this car does look pretty cool from factory. Again, it's just a kind of commuter car, but in my opinion the styling is very modern, and it does look pretty sleek in the front, because again the metal that's on that they use on the side is kind of like the same that like makes up this factory grille. So now looking at the braking system, I did just briefly look at this. I didn't actually research it, but I did see that up in the front there is double piston calipers in the front with just a single piston caliper in the back. Now I know most traditional cars come like that, but actually a decent amount of cars still only have the single piston calipers in the front. So that is definitely something good about this car, and I'm sure it brakes really well. All right, so now we're actually got the hood up on this thing, and the first thing we can see is this little 2-liter inline-4 transverse mounted turbocharged engine. Now this engine actually has 4 valves per cylinder, and it does have actually double overhead cams like most modern engines. But basically this turbocharged inline-4 actually pushes right under 200 brake horsepower from factory. This car actually makes 175 brake horsepower at 5,500 RPMs, and I believe right around 150 torque. But yeah, it's not like anything super impressive, and you can kind of see like everything's actually not really covered in plastic, which honestly is something that I like, because I can actually look, I can see the intake, I can see the exhaust coming out, I can kind of see the baby turbo all the way down in there, and you can actually see a lot more things than like most modern cars. I know in my Camaro review, and I believe in my Ford Explorer review, I kind of ripped on those cars because basically those manufacturers just decided to put like one giant plastic thing like over the entire engine. Whereas yes, this does have like a plastic covering here, but at least you can see the exhaust, and at least you can see like the intake and other different parts of the engine. Obviously the battery's right here. It looks like it's pretty easy to replace, and you got all your fluids and everything. So this is definitely a very user-friendly car. But yeah, you're not gonna really expect or look for power when you're buying this car. But it is very user-friendly, and again, with this kind of power with front-wheel drive, I'm sure it's fantastic in the snow, it's fantastic in the rain, and just overall it's a really good commuter car. All right, so when this inline 4-cylinder engine is actually paired with the 6-speed shiftable automatic transmission that's actually in this car actually gets a very impressive 25 miles per gallon during city driving and 36 miles per gallon during highway driving, for a combined kind of miles per gallon number of 32. So yeah, that being said, this car actually also has an 18.5 gallon fuel tank, So yeah, you're probably only filling this thing up maybe 2 weeks, maybe a little over 2 weeks you can probably get it to. And that's like day-to-day commuting. And now, again, you know, miles per gallon kind of depends upon everyone's driving. If you're always like on the gas in this thing and you're always driving it quick, I'm sure that, you know, that those numbers can go down, and they can go down quickly. But it is a 4-cylinder engine, so you can kind of get away with driving it at higher RPMs and still maintain those, you know, incredible miles per gallon numbers. All right, so I actually did go kind of through the exterior and the overall drivetrain of this car pretty quickly, because I did want to focus on the interior. Now, kind of inside, there is a lot of room for what this car is. I'm not going to focus on the back seats too much, because they're basically like, there's not a lot of stuff in there, but actually in the front, there's like a ton of options. Now, when the owner was showing me this, like, I was actually pretty surprised, but again, it is a 2017, so a lot of these newer car manufacturers, people would be surprised that, like, you don't really have to go out and, you know, buy a Mercedes, buy a BMW, stuff like that, because a lot of these quote-unquote lower-end manufacturers that people think that they are, they're basically making the same exact vehicles that some of the high-end manufacturers. All right, guys, so now I'm actually in the driver's seat of this thing, and one thing that I did really want to kind of mention to you guys a lot is this actual touchscreen. Now, this isn't like an Apple CarPlay touchscreen. It's not necessarily the same thing, but it pretty much has, as far as I know, it pretty much has most of the features that come along with Apple CarPlay. Now, as you can see in here, right now it's actually just displaying like the music screen, but if you go into the sound, I don't know if you guys can see, it kind of keeps unfocusing, but you can literally like adjust the bass, the mid, the treble, all that stuff, and then you go into phone, and I can go into his contact. I'm not going to go into the owner's contacts because I don't want people seeing like names and information, but you can go into your contacts, kind of see all of that, and then you go back to the main menu, and you can have images synced in here. Obviously, you can control the settings. You also have the regular radio, the telephone. So basically, you can also, the owner kind of showed it to me before, you can also kind of, you know, call someone, and if your phone's like linked to this car, I don't know whether it's just through Bluetooth or actually through like a plug or something like that, but your phone basically connects to the car, so you can talk just like how I'm talking while you're driving, and it's not going to impair your driving or anything like that. So yeah, that being said, I really like the design of the steering wheel as well. It kind of has, it's nothing really special, but that's kind of what I like about it. Like, normally you see a lot of stuff like on these modern steering wheels, and I kind of like just regular, you know, simple steering wheels. So yeah, that being said, I'm actually just going to drive this thing for a bit and tell you guys how I feel, tell you guys my initial reactions, and, you know, just my overall opinion of this car. Alright guys, so now we're actually driving this 2017 Passat, and honestly, like, my first reactions are it's extremely responsive, both you know, with the gas, with the brakes, and with the steering. Now again, that's kind of like a common common theme that you see with these modern day vehicles, because again, they're so new. But yeah, that being said, I'm really impressed with not just the interior, but also the drivability of this car. Like, I'm barely moving the steering wheel, and there's no slop in it at all, which again, this is nothing really specific to this car. It's not like this car is like super amazing, but it's new, so there's not going to be any slop. The suspension's going to be the suspension's actually, it's a good mix of tight and comfort. Like, there is definitely a decent amount of body roll, but it's designed to handle and take corners and go over potholes comfortably. You know, it's a commuter car. It's all about, you know, kind of like the creature comforts that people typically look for in cars, not necessarily what car enthusiasts care about more. So yeah, that being said, I'm gonna go over some bumps right now, and it handles them really smooth. This isn't like the smoothest car I've driven, because it is almost a little bit too reactive. You can't really complain about a car being reactive. But yeah, now I'm actually going to kind of accelerate a little bit. And it's definitely not like fast by any means, but it is a little bit of, it's definitely a little quick. Now, the just under 200 horsepower that this car produces definitely is enough to get you out in traffic when you're commuting. Again, this is what this car is kind of designed for. And it is actually enough to kind of throw you back in the seat. Now, I know that sounds kind of funny, but yeah, it's a fun car to drive. It's brand new, so everything's extremely responsive, and it has just enough power that you can kind of, I don't want to say push the car to its limits, but you kind of can test out the car's full capability on a public road. A lot of time, people don't realize, like, a lot of time these different sports cars and things like that are basically come from factory with a crap ton more power, you can't really push like those really high performing cars to their limits, especially on public roads, without endangering your safety and the safety of others around you. So that being said, it is fun to be in a car that can kind of be pushed to its limits. Now again, this is just a test drive, I'm not really doing that, but just driving the car and the amount of power that it has, you can definitely tell that this car actually is pretty fun to drive. So yeah, basically I don't really have any complaints at all. Alright, so another thing that I do actually really like about this car that I typically don't really like is the amount of features that it has in it. Now, it does actually have kind of an old school style clock in the center that I'm sure you guys saw when I was filming. But yeah, I actually really like this touchscreen. Now, typically if you guys have seen any of my videos before, you guys have probably seen me kind of ripping on cars for having a lot of modern day conveniences, but honestly, this car is actually kind of like a happy medium. Like, it does have the kind of modern feel and the modern day conveniences, but it's not so over the top that I really think that anything out of these specific features is gonna like immediately fail or immediately break. Because honestly, my biggest criticism for cars that have a lot of modern day conveniences is the fact that it's just more things that you're probably not going to use, and it's probably just going to break on you and cause something else to break. But honestly, I really like how this car is designed. I do like this setup actually, opposed to the Apple CarPlay, believe it or not. Now, I know the Apple CarPlay is actually, you know, kind of more popular and a lot more people know it, and everyone thinks like that it's really awesome. But I just don't really like the fact that as soon as you get in your car, your phone kind of starts playing. Now, this car, you can do that, and you can have your phone set up to that, but there's also a bunch of different settings in the actual settings tab that I didn't really go through too much, that can actually, you can kind of like optimize your specific car to what you want it to be. So that being said, guys, if you stuck to the end of this video, first of all, thank you. Thank you for the support. Definitely be sure to leave a like on the video. Comment down below your thoughts and your opinions on this specific car, and let me know other videos you guys like to see in the future. And also subscribe and share my channel with your friends as well. It helps out a lot. Alright, so until the next one, see you guys.